Hey guys, it's Andrew or Feel No Pain, and today I'm bringing you a review, finally. It's not Diablo 3. I know I've been doing a lot of that lately, but it's kind of got me hooked. This is a review for Neverwinter. This is a free-to-play MMO by Cryptic Studios, and honestly, I think it's one of the better ones out there. There are a ton. If you have Steam and you've ever looked on there and you look up free-to-play MMOs, there's probably 50 of them. There's probably more than that, but there's a ton that are absolutely terrible, and there's a ton that are okay, and then there's a few that are really good. Being someone who played World of Warcraft for years and EverQuest for years, I have kind of a high standard of what an MMO should be because I've gone through the subscription model and I've paid to play those games and dropped $15 a month. So I actually feel like I get to be a little more critical of games like this that are free to play. And for those of you that don't know, the free to play model with MMOs generally includes some sort of cash shop. And this one's no different, but usually the biggest sort of disparity in what people are upset about in these games is how much the cash shop and paying real money actually affects your ability to play the game. Now, as usual, I will start off by saying there's going to be the minimum PC requirements and specs and everything popping up on the screen for you. I'll tell you right now, they're not that intensive. Like 1 gig of RAM minimum, pretty standard in most computers that are less than 8 years old. So this game's at least you don't have to have a super beefy PC to play it. I think I've got all my everything maxed out, and it still runs at 60. So it's a beautiful game too. It actually looks really good for an MMO. A lot of MMOs kind of have that problem of, because we have content, everything's clunky and graphics are nasty and textures on the wall are just disgusting. And this doesn't really have that. I actually like the way this looks a lot. And I think that the aesthetic of it, and even the user interface that you can see here, is relatively unobtrusive. It's relatively easy to move around and check things out, and it steals a lot of things from games like World of Warcraft. The inventory management, the sort of skill trees, the character model sheet with all your items on it, and even to a lesser extent how the stats work. Although the stats, the base stats like strength and dexterity, are based very much off of a Dungeons and Dragons type set, like old school Dungeons and Dragons, and it is called Dungeons and Dragons Neverwinter, but it uses like you start with your stats all start somewhere in the teens, and they only increase I think every 10 levels, and it's by 1 point, very much like in an old school paper D&D game. You would roll your stats for a character, and actually at the beginning when you create the character you can roll your stats, which means there's a certain number of stat points and it randomizes them towards the original, like, the character I'm playing is basically like a swashbuckler, assassin kind of rogue, and so dexterity's the stat I need, and then strength and I think charisma are the secondary stats. So you can roll those higher and basically have a more powerful starting character. But it's very Dungeons and Dragons-y when it comes down to it. You get the items you pick up have boosts on them that will say increase your movement by 90, but 90 is a point system, and the point system basically scales to a percentage as you level. So say at level 15, 90 movement is worth 2% extra movement speed. Well, at level 20, 90 movement might be worth 1% or 1.5% extra movement speed. So that's where you're sort of like gearing up, and constantly gaining better equipment helps, because the same gear loses power as you level up. That goes with everything too, your attack power, your critical chance, your dodge, deflection. I guess dodge isn't one of them, but deflection and armor piercing. And there's all these stats that you can increase to create your character how you want. And I think that's a really cool concept, because it's not like it's the newest thing in the world. Things like that have been done before. But it removes the need to constantly have like main stat upgrades. Like games like World of Warcraft and stuff, everything has like strength or endurance or whatever it's called on it, and intelligence. And those games, like, eventually it kind of feels silly because you just have like 7,000 whatever, and upgrading that by a few points doesn't feel like much. But in this, when you hit one of those level marks, 10 and 20 that I've hit so far, and you get to increase your dexterity from 20 to 21, that immediately feels like, oh, well, that's an increase, because the numbers are so low. And the same goes with the other things. When you've got something with 90 movement, and you level up a couple times and you find something new that has like 170, it feels like a huge increase, and it may or may not be, but it has that sort of feeling of like, oh, I have something in my level now, so this is functioning as it should be, and it's not a lowered amount because I've out-leveled the item. So as far as like all the MMO things that go on in this game, they feel really good, and it makes you want to keep playing and keep leveling, and I really like that about it. It's in that respect one of the most solid free, like probably the most solid free-to-play MMO I've seen so far. And I know there are some like Guild Wars that are basically buy to play, which is you buy the game and there's no subscription model. But this one doesn't cost you anything from the start, and I'll get to that in a minute. So all those things aside, and MMOs have been around for close to 20 years now. So there's a lot of things that keep getting redone and reused and rehashed, and that's fine because it works well for the game style. You level up relatively slowly. There's a lot of quests. There's these quest hubs. And this game doesn't do anything differently, it just does it well. There's a main city that you consistently go back to for quests, but in the little outlying areas that you go to, which you get to via a map, you get more quests for that area specifically, and then you might go back to the main quest hub and get a couple that take you to a new area, and while you're there, you'll get more. So thus far, I haven't actually found any problem in leveling, leveling via the quest system. A lot of these free-to-play games have the problem where if the quests don't do it anymore, and by like level 12 you're just grinding, killing things because you don't have any quests to your level. I think I'm currently level 20 or 21 on Neverwinter, and that hasn't been a problem at all, actually. And right now they're doing a double XP thing, which kind of helps, with that. But it doesn't seem like there's a huge grind, and it might be later in the game, but even still, for a free-to-play, I'm pretty impressed at how far I've gotten without dropping any money into it, and still feeling like it's a functional game and not kind of punishing me for not having put money into it. So, anyway, the big thing about this, and the big thing that has to be about this, you guys can see from the video how the combat works and how it's got that little like toolbar at the bottom where all your skills go, and you can like chain attack stuff. And what I really like is it's action oriented. You dodge. You don't have a dodge chance, but you actually physically dodge, and you're watching me fight this boss right here. So when he does that move, I roll out of it and it says dodged. If you're in that animation when some attack hits, you'll automatically dodge it, which is it feels a lot better than a lot of games where it's just like you have a few abilities that do so much damage and you sit there and you just cast, and there's a basic cast time, and you stand in one place and things come up and hit you, and you know that you can take the damage because you're supposed to, because you're that level. This is very different. Some of the bosses have mechanics that if you don't roll out of them, they will wreck you hard. Most of the normal monsters don't, but they do have abilities that will hurt badly enough that you'll start blowing through potions really fast, which is just a pain. You can buy more, but it gives you a sense of satisfaction to like dodge roll out of the way of big attacks and then counter attack and use your abilities well. And I've got one you've probably seen where I teleport in behind a monster. If you don't use that at the beginning, you can use it later on. You can roll out and then teleport back in while they're like maybe stunned from the animation of their ability use. So that's the thing. And actually what you're going to see in this video is you're going to see it repeat twice. I only got like 12 minutes of footage, 13, 14 minutes of footage, something like that. And the reason was I screwed up recording the first 2 times. And I'm kind of on a time crunch, but really wanted to get something out today that was a review and not just more Diablo 3 gameplay, because I know not everyone's into that. So you will see the same thing repeat twice. Don't think that the game does that to you. It's actually the same video, just repeated. But it gives a pretty good feel for what the combat looks like, for what the inventory screen for the quest system. So I figured I'd just use it twice. And anyone that's watching this for a review isn't watching it just for the gameplay. They're watching it to learn about whether the game's worth it and whether the game's, you know, worth playing. And I would say worth buying, but that's a story I'm about to get into. This game is free to play. So what I'm going to do with this is, I know I usually do my cost and time value, but they're very intertwined in this. And the only thing I can say about free-to-play games in general is the more you're willing to spend of real money, the better the time value you'll get out of it. And what I mean by that is you can buy like things that increase your experience, or you can drive even something as simple as buying more inventory space or more bank space, or a mount. You can buy mounts so that you can travel faster, and all these things kind of become one sort of overarching thing that makes the game's time to do things shorter, whether it's travel from place to place or level up. There's a variety, but what it does is the game uses, they call them Zen, which is they're sort of like real money currency. You buy the Zen and the Zen buys things, and it can get extremely pricey. What I think is kind of funny is there's a lot of free to play MMOs that have reasonable, like, real money sort of systems where you can do a lot for like $2 or $3 or $5, and that'll actually push you, you know, 10 or 20 levels before you feel the need to spend any real money again. And this game does the opposite. It has a very good free-to-play model where if you don't pay, it's still a very playable and very enjoyable game. But if you do want to pay and get those sort of benefits, you can pay an insane amount of money. And I will say that that is a huge drawback to this game, because the amount of money that you can put into this reasonably and still functionally be putting money towards an actual goal, and not just like, I want 4 million bank spaces, or, you know, I need, you know, 8,000 of this particular gem to put in my things on hold just in case I ever need them. I'm talking things that you can actively use. You could drop $300 to $500 on this game in the course of a month of playing a couple hours a day. There's so much stuff to spend real money on, and that sounds bad. That sounds really bad. And if you're the kind of person that's a completionist, if you're a min-maxer, if you want the best of everything, yeah, it's gonna hurt. It hurts a lot. It's expensive. But I understand what they're doing here. What I feel like they're doing is the sort of top 2% that have ridiculous amounts of expendable money and are like that and want to sort of min-max their way to the end of a game and just be the best, the absolute tankiest best. so be it. Those people get to spend tons of money. But for a large majority of people, myself included, who may not have 16 hours a day to play, or definitely don't have 16 hours a day to play, or $500 to drop on a game, this game is still very enjoyable as a PvE game, fighting against the monsters and doing dungeons with people and things like that, and you're not underpowered. You may not be overpowered, but you're not underpowered compared to what you're fighting. It's still very, very functional and very good. Now, the problem I see is that if you're someone who goes into games like this wanting to do just PvP combat, you know, going into battlegrounds and fighting against other players, there are quite a few of those really high-end buy or pay to win, if you want to say it that way, pay to win sort of aspects that are usable in PvP, like weapon enchantments and stuff like that. So the PvP, especially at high level, if you're not willing to sink money into this game or spend literally thousands of hours grinding, as an example, epic raid bosses drop these things that you can turn into enchantments, and then, but to turn them into these really insane enchantments you can use in PvP, or you can use all the time, but you can also use in PvP. You have to sort of roll a chance to successfully do it, and if you fail, you have to do the epic raid whatever again and get another one. The problem is the chance to succeed is only 1%, but there is a $10 item on the Pay Store, approximately $10 item on the Pay Store, that makes you auto succeed when you're trying to combine things or, you know, stuff like that. So literally for $10 you can change your chance to get that epic enchantment from 1% to 100%, and that's an issue if you're doing PvP. So I guess what I'm getting at is this game is fantastic for like normal, like, dungeon crawling, monster slaying, and a lot of the quests are, as you're seeing here, these like mini dungeons that are created, and these are single player, but it still feels like a good dungeon crawling experience. You find treasures, and there's even like a little guy, like this little side room that I'm going into right now is like a completely optional thing. So there's a lot of stuff to do, and I really enjoy it for that. And I've done one like group dungeon, and it was really fun. It worked really well. The mechanics are amazing. It's fast-paced and hectic, but it works really well. So yeah, the time and cost of this are so related, I can't really talk about them separately. The first 20 levels have gone pretty quick. I think I've put like 12 hours into this game and I'm level 20, which for an MMO is really good. And I've spent a good bit of time getting into the crafting system and getting into all this other stuff. And so I don't feel upset about it. But it really depends on playstyle. And that's kind of all I need to say about the time and cost thing. If you're someone that has to put money into free-to-play games to enjoy them because you need to be all-powerful, then you're not going to like this game unless you have ridiculous amounts of money to spend. There are other games that do that way better and allow you to purchase buffs and, you know, enhancements that cost a few dollars instead of $100. So, based on that, I really like this game, and I'm giving it my seal of approval as a free-to-play MMO because it fits my style. It fits my sort of... I liked World of Warcraft for... I thought the story was pretty cool in some of the places you went, and then the dungeons were really neat because there was lore behind them. And the same goes with this game. It's very approachable. It is pretty hectic, but at least, I mean, even up until level 20, you don't get like insta-wrecked by monsters. So even if you're not flawless with the button presses and all your skills, you might not be as efficient as someone else who's like got all the button presses down and everything, but you'll still be functional. And you'll be able to play it, and you'll be able to kill things, and you'll be able to progress, which is more than I can say for some games. I mean, there's some games that are just so brutal that unless you're a god at them, you're just going to get absolutely wrecked. So, all in all, I like this game, but I have to give the fair warning that it may not be for everyone. It's not going to be something that everyone can just pick up and enjoy. If you're interested in MMO games, if you've never gotten into them because of the subscription model, but you've always liked kind of the idea of sort of a semi-open world with a, you know, an overarching story and these long level systems that let you go multiple places and sort of level up slowly but experience the game more, try it out. It doesn't cost anything to try out, and it doesn't hurt. You even get 2 character slots, so for free. So if you wanted to, say, create an assassin or a ranger as one, and then like a big tanky guy or a healer as another, you can do that, and it's worth your time if you're interested. My personal recommendation is not to buy into any of the stuff, or at least if you want to buy character slots for $5 or some extra inventory slots for $5, that's I approve of that, and I may do that eventually if I keep going in this game, but I don't recommend buying into the high-end stuff unless you're really positive you want to, because it's a lot of money you're going to throw at it, and you're going to throw a lot more at it than you realize initially. You're going to buy one thing and realize it leads you to needing another. So, aside from the fact that the pay part of this game is wonky, I give it 2 big thumbs up from my end, because I've played like 6 free-to-play MMOs, and this is the best so far, and I'm enjoying it a lot. I never even got into D&D back in the day. I just kind of understand how the systems work, but that's all I've got for you. It's a beautiful game. And I apologize if the video looks a little bit scratchy. I had to use, I think it's less than perfectly optimized, because I did have to use shadow play as opposed to OBS for this, because OBS just would not record at 60 frames per second in this. And it will on Diablo on max settings, which I can't really imagine being any more or less graphically intensive than this game. So I think there may be a little of that, but in playing it, it's actually just fine. I think it may just overutilize the CPU, but playing it, it's a solid 60 frames per second. It looks great. It looks even better than this when it's when I've got it on 1900 by 1200, which is my monitor's resolution. So, but I mean, even still, even recorded at a lower bit rate on a lesser quality recording program, I still think it looks pretty good. I went back and watched the video twice, just because sometimes you don't realize, you don't notice everything that you're seeing when you're playing a game, but when you go back and watch it, you kind of notice things like the sun shining off water, and, you know, little aspects of the graphics or aspects of the gameplay or things like that that you wouldn't otherwise notice. So I'm going to leave it here. I'm just going to kind of casually and awkwardly fade it into my outro, even though it's at an awkward point in the video, because I do that, and I hope you guys love it. But I will see you guys in the next video, and this is Neverwinter by Cryptic Studios, and it is available on Steam. I almost forgot that part. But I will see you guys later.